name's Karan. What, George?
Hey everyone, how are you doing? I'm really excited for this one, and it's a little bit of a passion project of mine. So let's get into it.
Oh yeah, I'm don't worry. I'm CK. I love football. That other people may know, and I say some outlandish stuff at times.
No on the podcast, so introduce yourself, mate.
Yeah, I think I only qualified for this podcast because I got my first dose, so this is why I'm here. Someone's got to act like the guy, who's at least almost COVID-free. There you go.
When you start comparing our actual production in terms of who is playing first-team football, in a U23 aspect in the world right now, Arsenal are among the greatest, potentially only rivaled by Chelsea, to be fair, who also have a supremely talented youth setup. But when you start to actually go down through the defense, in terms of players that are actually playing first-team football and among the top 5 leagues, you look at kind of the defense, right? We've got Saliba, Gabriel, Tierney as in the back right away, who are all playing, kind of first-team football. You then go through midfield. As much as they may not be, the most talented and on loans, we've got Lucas Torreira, Matteo Guendouzi, Joe Willock, all players currently playing in top 5 leagues of midfield. You want to go down further, there may be other prospects that we may want to throw in there, like an Aziz from an Arsenal standpoint, who is excellent and who has the potential. You may want your Patinos, but really I mentioned those first couple because those are confirmed playing in first teams. You then go to the attack. We've got Saka, Emile Smith-Rowe, Martinelli, Nelson, Balogun, all who have made debuts for the first team. And we haven't even mentioned my favorite youngster, Keto Taylor-Hart, in terms of the pool. So when you start to go through that spine, and we'll probably get into it a little bit later in the pod, but in terms of an actual academy prospect, we probably have a very guaranteed prospect almost in every position, bar, I would say, left center back and left back from an academy standpoint.
Look at you guys are saying, I completely agree. We do have one of the best under-23 cores in the world. The best. One of, if not the best, I think I can agree with. What do you think about that?
With Mertesacker and Arteta, Mertesacker himself has said one of the main reasons the club actually kept him was to keep him as an attraction to Mikel Arteta. And Mertesacker, the club told him that they want him and Arteta to realise their potential at Arsenal rather than realising it elsewhere. And that right now they're both growing in their roles together as academy manager and manager of the first team. With Mertesacker and Arteta coming in, there's been more of a realisation that we can transition our youth from U23 to the first team and from U18 to U23. With Mertesacker, he's acknowledged that we've always played good football, but he's also wanted our youth to take responsibility. And Arteta has also wanted our players to take responsibility for their actions. And you've seen with this season that our youth now, it may not be positive, but our youth do take more interviews after losses, which I don't think, it may not be positive, but it shows that it may not be a positive look on the elders in the club, but it shows responsibility in our youth that Saka can come after a loss and talk, or Willock can come after a loss and talk. Mertesacker has been adamant that players can be very good on the pitch, but they need to be able to take responsibility on and off the pitch.
And Arsene came up with an interesting philosophy, which I sort of agreed and leaned towards, but I've sort of adapted in my coaching philosophy when I've been coaching, which is allowing players to develop their intelligence by posing problems to players during training. And I hear that Thomas Tuchel does the same thing at Chelsea with his players. So I think that basically you create a training environment where they come in and you improve their football intelligence by putting them in under pressure situations and then making them decide in those pressure situations repeatedly the right kind of choices. So as I said, for players to be able to do that, they have to develop certain aspects and traits. Now, you can go back into the classroom as a coach and teach them, right, this is what you did right and this is what you did wrong in these kind of scenarios. Going back to Karen's point about vacating space, when to sort of maintain it, how to maintain shape. But there are some natural things that as a coach at that level, you have to wait for those players to develop. And sometimes, and I'll give you some examples, Omari Hutchinson, which we're probably going to come on to later, right? He started off as a left back And I'd lost track of him for about a year because I think that was when he was about 14. You know, he saw himself as a left back, and the coaches there were pretty sure that that's where he was going to start off. Where he's starting off, and what we'll see later on when we talk about him, are completely two different things. And I think Ashley Cole was another example. He started off, I think, playing as a forward, ended up then playing as a winger, and then ended up being a world-class left back. All of these guys, by the way, are coming through the Arsenal youth system. So a lot of my ideas about young players is it's very difficult to pin them in a position until you understand them as a whole complete entity. And we think if you look at Saka, we sort of saw that as well. I think, George, we were talking about this the other day. I said, look, how many of us as coaches looking at Saka, just from an outside perspective, because we don't train with the, we don't train the kid, we don't go to the training sessions. How many of us would have said that when he made his debut at left back, would we see him be a top class right winger, right? Because he certainly didn't look that when he first played, and I can't remember the game now where he first played right wing, and I think he had a really poor game. I don't know, CK, if you remember that game, which was it Wolves? I can't remember.
Yes, he did.
And he didn't play as well that first time as he plays now. And I think what we need to understand is sometimes you have to pose these problems to the players in terms of how we train them and how we sort of try to test them. And I think Emma Smith-Rowe next year, and this is like again comes under development. I don't want to sort of go into first thing, but a lot of our audience won't know some of our young players, but they will be able to see this development happening with some of the players that have made into the first team. Will still be in a developmental phase. I think Mikel is possibly going to play him at left wing, and he will help his development by allowing him to play in multiple positions. So for me, I think the only way a coach, and this is where I might differ from George, and I might have got it different from him, is to be able to sort of play players in different positions and to test their understanding of the game by playing them and training them in different positions to find what I would call their true position. And you sort of will only, I think when I've done that in my coaching experience, I've always been surprised how players responded to that kind of challenge. But whatever happened, even if they didn't make that position their position, they grew from the experience of playing in multiple positions and being able to ask to play in multiple zones. So, yeah, so I sort of see it as, the system is important, but we shouldn't allow the system completely to hamper the development of a young player. I think it's different, a question when you're bringing in a player who's already played multiple years in a certain position, and he's going to find it very difficult as a more experienced player to be able to play in different positions because, they pinned their position down. Just a crazy example, you couldn't ask Tony Adams to go and play centre forward after he became a veteran because, he's been conditioned to play central defence. But maybe if you took a young Tony and said, right, let's at the age of 16, let's see if you can, head a few of these balls into the back of the net, he'll give it a go. I think Sol Campbell, when he first started, he started off as a centre forward and he ended up playing at centre back, by accident almost. So, yeah, youth development is never, in my mind, linear. I think there's lots of things coaches have to understand about the players before they eventually, when we see them get to the first team. And even then, they still have room to sort of find their position and develop their skill set and understanding of the game.